The Awakening. Dr. Sarah Chen's consciousness returned slowly, like waves lapping at a distant shore. The cryopod seal broke with a soft hiss, releasing its preserving mists into the chamber. Her eyes opened to darkness, broken only by the faint blue glow of emergency lighting strips that lined the facility's walls. The air felt strange, thin, and metallic. "Systems restoration sequence initiated," announced an artificial voice, its familiar tone somehow different after so long. "Welcome back, Director Chen." Sarah's mind was still foggy, but years of training kicked in. She was the director of Project Sanctuary, humanity's last-ditch effort to preserve their species. The facility had been designed to wake her first in case of emergency or when the predetermined conditions for revival were met. As she struggled to sit up, her muscles protesting after their long dormancy, the reality of her situation began to sink in. The preservation chamber stretched before her, rows upon rows of cryopods containing the brightest minds Earth had to offer. Scientists, engineers, soldiers, and artists. 1,000 humans selected to rebuild civilization when the time was right. "Status report," she managed to croak, her voice rough from centuries of disuse. "Current date is approximately 872,451 years from initial preservation sequence. Main power systems are at 62% capacity. External sensors detect significant stellar drift from recorded positions. Current location does not match any known star charts." Sarah's breath caught in her throat. 800,000 years. They had planned for 10,000, maybe 50,000 at most. Something had gone terribly wrong, or perhaps terribly right. The sound of another pod opening drew her attention. Admiral James Torres, her second in command, was awakening. They had planned this too. The military leader would wake shortly after the scientific director. Balance in all things, even at the end of the world. "Dr. Chen," Torres called out, his voice as rough as hers. "Did we make it?" "We made it, James, but I don't think we're where we're supposed to be, or when we're supposed to be." Before she could explain further, the facility's sensors blared to life. "Unknown vessels detected in proximity. Configuration does not match any known designs. They appear to be scanning the facility." Sarah and James shared a look. This wasn't part of the plan. They were supposed to wake up to an empty Earth, cleansed of the nano-plague that had nearly destroyed humanity. Instead, they had slept through entire civilizations rising and falling, and now found themselves face to face with whoever inhabited the galaxy in this age. The facility shuddered as something locked onto their outer hull. Sarah steadied herself against her pod, her mind racing. They had protocols for first contact, but nothing that accounted for meeting aliens after nearly 1,000,000 years of sleep. "Wake sequence Alpha 7, she commanded. "Emergency revival for security teams 1 through 3 and the primary diplomatic course." As more pods began their wake sequence, the facility's speakers crackled with an unfamiliar sound, a language unlike anything Sarah had ever heard, followed by halting English. "Attention unknown facility. This is the Galactic Federation vessel Eternal Dawn. Your energy signature matches no known civilization. Please identify yourselves." James had managed to make it to the control console. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. The universal translator is barely making sense of their language. It's evolved so far from any known linguistic patterns. Sarah straightened her back, ignoring the protest of ancient muscles. This was the moment everything would change. Humanity's first contact would be not as explorers reaching out to the stars, but as living ghosts, waking to a universe that had forgotten them. "This is Director Sarah Chen of the Human Preservation Facility Sanctuary. We represent the last organized group of humanity, preserved from Earth circa 870,000 years ago. We come in peace and request diplomatic contact." The silence that followed seemed to stretch for eternity. Finally, the response came, this time in clearer English as their systems adapted to each other. "Impossible. The humans are. You are. Legends. Stories told to children. myths from the deep time. You cannot be real. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. I assure you, we are very real. And we have much to learn about what the universe has become in our absence. As more of her people began to wake, Sarah could feel the weight of history pressing down upon them. They had preserved themselves to escape extinction, but in doing so, they had become something else entirely, living ancestors, walking myths, carrying the legacy of a civilization the galaxy had relegated to legend. The universe had changed while they slept, but humanity was about to remind the galaxy why they had once been a force to be reckoned with. They were back, and nothing would ever be the same. Legacy of the Ancients. The Galactic Federation's diplomatic vessel hung in space like a crystalline sculpture, its organic curves a stark contrast to the angular, utilitarian design of the sanctuary facility. Inside the Federation ship's conference chamber, Sarah Chen studied the assembled alien representatives with carefully concealed fascination. The Federation had sent 3 species to meet them. The Arcturi, tall humanoids with iridescent skin who seemed to be the dominant diplomatic force. The Varen, smaller beings composed of what appeared to be living crystal. And the Keth, who resembled Earth's extinct cephalopods, but moved through the air as easily as water. You must understand our concern, said first speaker Lyra, the Arcturi representative. Your facility contains technology that predates our oldest records. The mere fact that your preservation systems function for over 800 millennia is unprecedented. Sarah exchanged a glance with Admiral Torres before responding. We understand. But what concerns me is why such technology seems to have been lost. Our records indicate that humanity was not alone in possessing such capabilities. What happened to the other advanced civilizations of our time? An uncomfortable silence fell over the chamber. The Varen representative, who had introduced himself as Crystal Song in Darkness, chimed in with a sound like tinkling bells. They vanished, all of them, within a relatively short period after your species' disappearance. We assumed it was some sort of natural cosmic cycle, but now you wonder if it wasn't natural at all. Torres finished. That's why we went into the pods. We called it the silence. Something was systematically eliminating advanced civilizations. We never discovered who or what was responsible, but we knew we couldn't fight it. Not then. The revelation sent ripples of movement through the alien delegates. The Keth representative, Administrator Nix, shifted colors rapidly. What Sarah's translator indicated was a sign of extreme agitation. If what you say is true, the implications are staggering, Nix pulsed. Our archaeologists have found evidence of advanced civilizations, but much of their knowledge was lost. Yet you carry within your databases and your minds the accumulated wisdom of humanity's golden age. Sarah nodded slowly. More than that, we carry the collected knowledge of several alien civilizations who saw what was coming. They shared their technology, their understanding with us before they fell silent. We were meant to preserve not just humanity, but a legacy of multiple species. The chamber erupted in overlapping voices and translations as the implications sank in. Sarah activated a holographic display, showing technical schematics that made the alien representatives lean forward in surprise. This is impossible, Crystal Song hummed. These energy configurations, they defy our current understanding of physics. Not impossible, Sarah corrected, just forgotten. Like the quantum harmonics your crystalline ancestors used to build their first cities, or the gravitational manipulation that allowed the Keth's forebears to touch the hearts of stars. The alien stared at her in shock. She had deliberately mentioned technologies specific to their ancestral species, knowledge that had been lost to time but preserved in Sanctuary's databases. First speaker Lyra raised a hand for silence. You offer us our own forgotten history, but surely you must want something in return. We want to prevent history from repeating itself, Torres said firmly. The silence that forced us into Cryo-Sleep, we believe it's still out there. Our long-range sensors detected patterns similar to those we saw before our preservation. Whatever it is, it's still hunting. Sarah stood, her voice carrying the weight of centuries. We propose an exchange. We'll share our knowledge, help rebuild what was lost. In return, we need your help understanding what the galaxy has become, and your support in preparing for what we believe is coming. The alien representatives conferred quietly among themselves. Finally, Lyra spoke again. The Federation Council will need to be consulted. This is unprecedented. Some will welcome this opportunity, but others will fear the changes your knowledge could bring. There are those who believe that certain technologies are best left in the past. The past has a way of catching up to the present, Sarah replied. We can face it together, or we can watch history repeat itself. The choice is yours. As the diplomatic session concluded, Sarah and Torres walked back to their shuttle. They're afraid, Torres observed quietly. They should be, Sarah replied. But not of us. She paused, looking out at the star-filled void. Something destroyed their ancestors, James. Something that was powerful enough to make the most advanced civilizations we knew choose extinction over fighting. And if I'm right, it's finally noticed that some of its prey has returned. The shuttle ride back to Sanctuary was quiet, both leaders lost in thought. They had offered the Federation a chance to reclaim their lost heritage, but in doing so, they may have also painted a target on humanity's back once again. Inside Sanctuary, more of their people were awakening. Scientists, warriors, and engineers from a forgotten age, each carrying pieces of a puzzle that had taken centuries to assemble. They were no longer just survivors. They were living repositories of knowledge that could reshape the galaxy. But as Sarah reviewed the long-range sensor data in her private quarters, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. The patterns were there, just as they had been before the silence fell. Entire star systems going dark, subspace distortions that shouldn't exist, and whispers of something moving in the spaces between galaxies. History was about to repeat itself, unless humanity could finally solve the mystery that had forced them into their long sleep. This time, they wouldn't face the darkness alone. Assuming the Federation could overcome its fears before it was too late. The hidden threat. The holographic display in Sanctuary's command center painted Sarah's face in an eerie blue glow as she studied the data streams. 23 star systems had gone dark in the past month alone, each falling silent in the same pattern they'd observed centuries ago. It's accelerating, she told the assembled group of human and Federation representatives. The Federation Council had finally agreed to form a joint task force after 3 of their frontier colonies vanished without a trace. Admiral Torres stepped forward, pointing to a series of gravitational anomalies. The pattern is different this time. Whatever this entity is, it's not just hunting, it's searching for something specific. Crystal's song in darkness chimed in agreement, his crystalline form refracting the holographic light. We've analyzed the attack pattern. Each targeted system had one thing in common. They all contained ruins or artifacts from the ancient civilizations, including yours. First speaker Lyra added, looking at Sarah. The last system to go dark contained what we believe to be an abandoned human outpost. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. She pulled up another display, this one showing data recovered from Sanctuary's long-term sensor logs. Before we went into Cryo-Sleep, we launched automated probes throughout the galaxy. Most failed over the centuries, but some maintained partial functionality. Look at this. The hologram shifted, showing a massive dark shape moving between stars. It seemed to bend light around it, making direct observation impossible. But its effects were clear. Wherever it passed, worlds died. We called it the Void Dancer, Sarah explained. We never understood what it was, only that it seemed to be searching for something. When it couldn't find it, it destroyed everything in its path. Administrator Nix pulsed with concerned colors. And you believe it's still searching for the same thing? No, Torres said grimly. We think it found what it was looking for. In us. Sarah nodded, bringing up another display. When we went into preservation, we didn't just preserve people and knowledge. We were protecting something else. She entered a complex series of commands, and a section of Sanctuary's wall slid away, revealing a hidden chamber. Inside, suspended in a field of shifting energy, was a small crystalline object about the size of a human hand. It pulsed with an inner light that seemed to defy the normal rules of physics. "The Nexus Key," Sarah explained as the alien stared in wonder. "It was given to us by the predecessors, the civilizations that came before even our time. They said it was both a key and a weapon, capable of opening doorways between dimensions. They believed the Void Dancer was searching for it. Why give it to humans?" Lyra asked, her iridescent skin flickering with emotion. "Because we were different," Torres answered. "All the other advanced species had evolved gradually, building their civilizations over millions of years. But humanity, we went from our first powered flight to interstellar travel in less than 2 centuries. Our minds worked differently. We could see patterns others missed, make intuitive leaps that defied conventional logic. The predecessors believed that same unpredictability might help us find a way to use the key effectively," Sarah continued. "But before we could learn its secrets, the Void Dancer's attacks intensified. We had no choice but to hide ourselves and the key until we could find a way to fight back." Crystal Song moved closer to the key, his crystalline form resonating with its energy. "The technology. It's similar to my people's ancient harmonics, but infinitely more complex. This could explain why the entity is targeting systems with ancient ruins. It's trying to piece together the technology that created the key." Suddenly, Sanctuary's alarms blared. The holographic display shifted to show a massive subspace distortion forming at the edge of the system. Sarah's blood ran cold. She recognized the pattern. "It's here," she whispered. "The Void Dancer found us." The massive shape emerged from subspace, larger than any vessel they had ever encountered. It seemed to swallow light itself, leaving only a void in space where stars should be visible. The entity that had haunted humanity's nightmares for centuries had finally tracked down its prey. "Battle stations," Torres ordered, his voice steady despite the terror that threatened to overwhelm them. "Begin evacuation sequences for non-essential personnel. Transfer all critical data to secure storage." "No," Sarah said firmly. "We're not running. Not this time." She turned to the Federation representatives. "This is what we preserved ourselves for. Will you stand with us?" The aliens exchanged looks before Lyra stepped forward. "The Federation stands with humanity. What do you need?" Sarah's hands flew over the controls, bringing up schematics that made the Federation scientists gasp in surprise. "We've had 800,000 years to study the key, to understand its purpose. We couldn't activate it because we were missing crucial components, technology that only your species possess. Together, we might have a chance." As the Void Dancer approached, casting its impossible shadow over their system, humanity and their new allies prepared to make their stand. The moment they had preserved themselves for had finally arrived. And this time, they weren't facing the darkness alone. The key pulsed in its chamber, its light growing stronger as if responding to the approaching threat. The time had come to face the ancient enemy that had haunted the galaxy for millennia, and to prove that humanity's preservation had served a greater purpose than mere survival. Rising storm. The Void Dancer's approach turned space itself into a mockery of natural law. Stars seemed to twist and bend around its massive form, their light distorting in ways that made sensors and organic eyes alike struggle to comprehend its true shape. Inside Sanctuary's reinforced command center, Sarah Chen watched as Federation ships took up defensive positions alongside the awakened human vessels. The fleet was a testament to the rapid cooperation between species, sleek Federation cruisers enhanced with restored human technology, their hulls now gleaming with reconstructed quantum shielding. "All ships report ready," Torres announced from his tactical station. "The Arcturi battle groups have synchronized their shield harmonics with our vessels. The Varin crystal ships are in position to amplify the key's energy signature." Sarah nodded, her attention split between multiple holographic displays showing the intricate web of preparations they'd managed to complete in mere hours. Status of the Keth temporal stabilizers. Operating at 93% efficiency, Administrator Nix pulsed from her station. We've never attempted to generate a temporal field this large, but the theories your scientists preserved, they're working. The combined fleet represented the largest gathering of ships in recent Federation history. Yet against the impossible scale of the Void Dancer, they seemed insignificant. The entity had already begun its attack, sending out waves of dark energy that corrupted space itself. First wave incoming, Crystal Song announced, his crystalline form vibrating with tension. The void effects are stronger than any previous recordings. The wave hit their defensive line like a tsunami of unreality. Ships buckled as space itself tried to tear them apart, but the combined technologies held. Barely. The quantum shields flickered but remained intact, while the Varan crystal ships sang in harmony to stabilize the local space-time fabric. Now we know why the predecessors couldn't fight this thing directly, Torres said grimly. It doesn't just destroy ships. It unmakes the laws of physics around them. Sarah's hands flew over her controls, making final adjustments to their desperate plan. The Nexus key pulsed in its chamber, synchronized with the vast network of technology they'd woven around it. All ships, begin Phase 1. Execute on my mark. The fleet began to move in perfect coordination, their formations creating geometric patterns that seemed to resonate with the key's energy. The Void Dancer responded, its massive form shifting as if noticing the challenge for the first time. Energy spike. Crystal Song's warning came just as the entity released a blast of concentrated void energy directly at Sanctuary. Redirect power to the primary shield grid, Torres ordered. Keth stabilizers at maximum. The blast struck their defenses with devastating force. Inside Sanctuary, equipment sparked and gravity fluctuated. Sarah held onto her console as reality itself seemed to shudder around them. Shields holding at 30%, reported a technician. The predecessor's theories were right. It's not just energy we're dealing with. It's trying to rewrite the fundamental constants of our local space-time. Then let's show it our own rewrite, Sarah said, her voice steady despite the chaos. Begin key activation sequence. All ships, move to Phase 2 positions. The fleet shifted again, forming a complex three-dimensional lattice around Sanctuary. The Varan crystal ships began to emit harmonics that made the fabric of space resonate at specific frequencies, while Arctuary vessels projected fields of stabilized quantum foam between them. The Nexus key's pulse quickened, its light growing brighter as it synchronized with the surrounding technology. This was what the predecessors had designed it for, not just as a weapon, but as a tool to rewrite reality itself. Key synchronization at 80%, Crystal Song reported. The quantum matrices are aligning with the void energies. The Void Dancer seemed to sense the danger. It launched another attack, this time targeting multiple ships simultaneously. 2 Federation cruisers vanished instantly, their space-time coordinates scattered across dimensions. We can't take another hit like that, Torres warned. The shield grid is barely holding together. Sarah watched the tactical display, her mind racing. The entity's attacks followed patterns she'd spent centuries studying in the sensor logs. There, she said, pointing to a subtle fluctuation in its void field. That's not random interference. It's a signature. She quickly input a series of commands, redirecting the key's energy through the fleet's lattice formation. All ships, adjust harmonics to frequency 793. Match the variance exactly. The effect was immediate. The Void Dancer's next attack seemed to pass through their shields without effect, as if they existed in slightly different dimensions. It's working. Crystal Song chimed excitedly. The key is synchronizing with the entity's own dimensional frequency. But their victory was short-lived. The Void Dancer's form began to shift, its impossible geometry expanding as it prepared something new. The very stars around them started to dim, as if light itself was being consumed. Energy readings off the scale, Torres reported tensely. Whatever it's doing, it's drawing power from multiple dimensional planes simultaneously. Sarah looked at the Nexus key, its light now pulsing in perfect rhythm with the fleet's combined technologies. They had one chance to get this right. If they failed, they wouldn't just lose the battle. They would lose the very fabric of reality in this sector of space. All ships, prepare for final phase, she ordered. We're going to show this thing why the predecessors chose humanity to guard their legacy. The Void Dancer's attack was building to its crescendo, and the combined fleet of humanity and the Federation prepared to make their stand. The next few moments would determine not just their fate, but the fate of all life in the galaxy. New dawn. Space itself seemed to hold its breath as the Void Dancer's attack reached its peak. The entity had grown to encompass nearly a quarter of the visible sky, its form a writhing mass of dimensional distortions that threatened to tear reality apart. Key synchronization at maximum, Crystal Song reported, his crystalline form resonating with the combined energies of their defensive network. The dimensional frequencies are aligned. Sarah Chen stood at her station, watching as centuries of preparation came to this moment. The Nexus key's light had become almost blinding, its pulse matching the rhythm of the void energies that surrounded them. All ships, execute final phase, she commanded. Arcturi cruisers, begin the quantum cascade. Varin ships, harmonics at full power. Keth stabilizers to maximum output. The combined fleet moved as one, their formation tightening into a perfect geometric pattern that mimicked the internal structure of the key itself. Energy began to flow between the ships, creating a web of light that stood in stark contrast to the darkness of the Void Dancer. The entity's trying to counter, Torres warned. It's shifting its dimensional frequency. No, Sarah said, a sudden realization striking her. It's not countering, it's responding. Look at the pattern. The Void Dancer's attacks had changed, its void energy pulses now matching the rhythm of their own network. It wasn't just fighting them. It was trying to communicate in the only way it knew how. Crystal Song, adjust the key's harmonics to match the entity's new frequency, Sarah ordered. Everyone else, hold position and maintain power output. The crystalline scientist complied, his form vibrating as he manipulated the ancient device. The key's light shifted, and suddenly the space between them and the Void Dancer seemed to crystallize, forming a bridge of pure energy. By the ancestors, Lyra whispered, her iridescent skin flickering with emotion. The predecessors didn't create the key as a weapon. It's a translation matrix. Images began to flood their sensor displays, not attacks, but messages encoded in the fabric of space-time itself. The Void Dancer was a survivor, like them, the last of its kind from a universe that had collapsed long ago. It had been searching for eons, looking for someone who could understand its nature, who could help it find a way home. That's why the predecessors chose humanity, Sarah realized. Not because we were warriors or scientists, but because we could make the intuitive leap to understand something completely alien to our experience. The Void Dancer's form began to shift again, but this time it wasn't threatening. Its impossible geometry settled into a more stable configuration, one that their sensors could finally process. We're receiving a clear transmission, Torres announced, his voice filled with wonder. It's sharing its knowledge with us, everything it learned in its journey across the dimensions. The combined fleet held position as the exchange continued. The Nexus key served its true purpose at last, not as a weapon of war, but as a bridge between fundamentally different forms of existence. Hours passed as the knowledge transfer continued. The Void Dancer shared secrets of reality that even the predecessors hadn't understood, while humanity and the Federation offered something the entity had thought lost forever: the chance to be understood, to find allies in its ancient journey. Finally, the exchange came to an end. The Void Dancer's form began to withdraw, not in retreat but in transformation. It had found what it had spent eons searching for, not destruction, but connection. It's leaving, Crystal Song announced, but it's changed the dimensional frequency of its void field. We can track it now, maybe even communicate with it. Sarah nodded, feeling the weight of centuries lifting from her shoulders. The predecessors didn't preserve us to fight a war. They preserved us to prevent one. To be the bridge between different forms of life, no matter how alien. The Federation ships began to power down their weapons, while maintenance crews started assessing the damage from the intense energy exchange. But there was no sense of defeat or mere survival. Instead, there was a feeling of triumph more profound than any military victory. "What now?" Torres asked, looking at the star-filled space where the Void Dancer had been. "We've made contact with something from beyond our universe. The galaxy will never be the same." "Now," Sarah said, looking at their alien allies with a smile, "we do what humanity has always done best. We adapt. We learn. We grow. The predecessors chose us because they saw something special in humanity, not our technology or our strength, but our ability to face the unknown with curiosity instead of fear." First Speaker Lyra stepped forward. "The Federation Council will want to understand everything that happened here. This changes our understanding of not just space and time, but of life itself. Then we'll face those changes together," Sarah replied. "Humanity didn't preserve itself just to hide in the shadows of history. We preserved ourselves to be here for moments like this, when the galaxy needs people who can look at the impossible and see possibilities instead of threats." As the fleet began its journey back to Federation space, Sarah looked at the Nexus key, still pulsing with a soft light. They had awakened expecting to find a galaxy that had forgotten them, only to discover that they had been preserved for a purpose greater than they had imagined. Humanity had returned not as conquerors or victims, but as bridges between the past and future, between different forms of life and understanding. They had faced the darkness of space and found not an enemy, but a new ally in the ongoing journey of discovery. The stars seemed brighter somehow as Sanctuary began its first voyage in over 800,000 years. Humanity had finally found its true purpose in the cosmos, not to fight the unknown, but to help all species face it together, with courage, wisdom, and most importantly, hope.